We're preparing for that big ACC road game. Who is the guy for Clemson? We'll talk about it right here on Locked on Clemson.
You are Locked on Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of Locked on Clemson, part-time host and producer over on 1055 The Roar. Thank you so much for making Locked on Clemson your first listen of the day. We're part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. And a special salute out there to my everydayers. You know who you are. You know how we do it here on Locked on Clemson. Exclusive Clemson content Monday through Friday, every single week, especially during football season. We are here for you. And if you're new to the show, well, welcome in. I'm glad that you're a part of the show. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you like this video, because then you'll never miss another episode. Hey, about 75% of you that are watching this are not yet subscribed. So what are you waiting for? This is great content here, and it's not because of me, but it's because of all of us together. We make this a really good show together. So I appreciate everyone's love and support over on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. Before we jump into it, I want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Today's episode, I wanted to discuss one thing that was interesting from Dabo Swinney's talks this week, specifically on who is the true MVP for Clemson so far this season, or who is necessarily the best player or the most important player or the most valuable player? Because I'm starting to feel like we're being told one player was that, and now we're being told another player is that. And I'm just curious if you agree or disagree, because let me give you a little bit of backstory. So yesterday, Dabo Swinney came out and he said that Antonio Williams is the best player on the team, and without him, they've been struggling to find their rhythm, their pace on offense. And I could see that, and I can definitely agree with that in a lot of ways. But the reason why it perked my ears up was because, well, you know, just a few days ago, actually November 2nd, I went back and looked when I had these notes down. But on November 2nd, Dabo Swinney actually said that, you know, Clemson's best player wasn't having their best game. And if their best player was having their worst game, then that was, you know, if that was the least of their worries, then that was a good thing, because then the best player would rebound. He believed in that, and he was referring to Cade Klubnik being a guy who would rebound. So, you know, the best last week, it was the best player having a bad game and talking about Cade Klubnik. This week is they've been without their best player, and that best player was Antonio Williams. So it kind of got me thinking, who is the true MVP for the team? I mean, you know, I don't really know, you know, if that's necessarily the case. But one thing I will tell you is this: it does seem as if the offense doesn't work as well without Antonio Williams on the field. Maybe he is that guy, that glue that keeps everything together. They can obviously still score points. They can obviously still get, you know, receptions and move the ball, you know, relatively, but they could be doing much better. And maybe their sluggish start is because Antonio Williams early on against LSU pulled a hamstring, and he hasn't been back since. Now, if you go back and you look at the LSU game, I mean, I can see that, because there were multiple plays where he was involved early, and he was even kind of that Clemson Xavier Thomas. You know, he was that Clemson version of a wide receiver that could come around and also play running back. So he was like an enhancement to the running game, but also a slot guy that could be your third down guy. So I do believe that Antonio Williams is a big part of this team. I also think it's kind of moving the goalpost a little bit, because you did tell us last week that Cade Klubnik was the best player, and him struggling was the reason why everything's going to be okay. But Cade does seem to need Antonio Williams. And the other way around, I mean, the whole team needs a quarterback that is going to lead the program and that is going to play consistent. It's somebody who can't struggle with the pocket presence, that can't, that runs around and scrambles when unnecessary, that misses reads, that's late on their timing. I mean, when Antonio Williams has a bad day, this is the way I look at it. While Antonio Williams may be one of the best players on the offense, if he has a bad day, there are, at least at the wide receiver position, other guys that should be able to step up. And you've told me that over on X as well. You believe it's not necessary to say, well, we're struggling because we're without Antonio Williams, because I agree with you. I think they should be able to work in other players. They should be able to work in Tyler Brown, for example. If you don't have Antonio Williams, you should be able to have Tyler Brown. So I'm not really understanding that. Now, on the other side, it's obvious that if Cade is having a bad time, they don't trust Christopher Vizina or Chris Denson after him. So if Cade is struggling, then he hurts everyone else around him, and there's no one else to pick up the slack after that. So while there is a massive hole on that third down reliability or that go-to guy, and maybe they are kind of conjoined twins in the sense of Cade can't be his best because he relies so much on Antonio Williams. He's built such a bond and trust with him that he gets worse when he's not in there. I honestly would say that's a terrible indictment for Cade, because Cade is trying to move forward to the NFL. And you know how the NFL is. You're going to have completely different wide receivers every single season. I mean, it's rare that a team and a roster stays together for as long as they do. So the fact that we're going to push this idea that Cade needs Antonio so bad that that's what's causing the struggles on offense worries me, at least from a Cade standpoint. Because if Cade is truly needing one wide receiver that much to be in a rhythm, to stay in the pocket, to move the football, to actually have an offense that has a pulse, then that kind of scares me. However, on Clemson's team, maybe Antonio Williams has that kind of impact where his routes and his ability forces the defense to adjust to him, open up options for the running back, open up options for the tight ends, and open up options for the other wide receivers. Antonio Williams is the best, at least proven on paper, the best wide receiver Clemson has, the most consistent one so far. So is he an MVP? He is definitely up there on my list of MVPs. I mean, on the offensive side of the ball, I think you would have to start. One for me would have to be Cade. He's the one that you have to rely on to be at his best. And then after him would be actually Antonio Williams. So it's the 1-2 punch. So if you miss out on Antonio Williams, there is a little bit of a gap there, because who's your third best player on offense? Well, it's not anybody on your offensive line, I don't think. It's not any of your running backs, not your tight end. Your third best player at this point is Bryant Wesco. We thought it would be TJ Moore, but it's not Tyler Brown or TJ Moore. It's actually been so far Bryant Wesco. So I can understand where Antonio Williams be that underneath guy, that third down guy, that keep the chain moving guy that Clemson needs to be successful. So who is the best player on Clemson? Well, you'll have to let me know what you think in the comments, or go message me over on X at the Morgan T Show. But I'm going to say I do get it. I get it from a skill position standpoint. Antonio Williams is probably the best player on offense altogether, because of what the weight on his shoulders. To me, still, though, is Cade Klubnik and his impact on the team overall, whether he's doing well or not. All right, hey, we're going to come back in the second segment right here on Locked On Clemson. We're going to talk about special teams and how it's somehow turned into from a weakness to now a weapon for the Tigers. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August. From footwork to breath work to athlete sweat, all the details out. Mazda brings the same intention to how they craft every single model. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Napa leather upholstery. Like our players, every detail matters. We sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. This episode is also brought to you by DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. I wanted to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it matters most. And let's break it down. For Clemson, I'm going to give you, I already previously gave you Adam Randall with his 21 carries, 112 yards, but I'm going to go ahead and give you Bryant Wesco Jr., 7 receptions, 118 yards, 2 touchdowns against Troy. He delivered in a big way and was reliable at the wide receiver position, someone that is helping this offense figure out what they can do next. And just like Bryant Wesco delivered for Clemson, DoorDash delivers on your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You can save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. All right, so segment 2, I wanted to talk about the special teams because, we mentioned how Clemson, that was one of our biggest concerns for the Tigers going into 2025. We really had no idea what to expect from the special teams unit because we didn't know who the kick returner was going to be, and we didn't even know who the punter was going to be. But now we know. We know it's Jack Smith, and we don't remember all that panic that we had preseason. And remember how I did multiple episodes about the punter and what we were going to do and how we supposedly had 3 punters in rotation and we didn't know who they were going to pick. Well, we're now 2 weeks in, and Jack Smith has honestly been the opposite of all of the offense. He's been the one reliable player. So maybe we should have said the MVP for the team is been the punter so far. We've had a ton of issues in the past couple of years, especially last year in special teams. There were blocked kicks. You really haven't seen a ton of really great returns in almost since Jacoby Ford. I mean, tell me the last time you've seen really electric kickoff returns or punt returns from Clemson. That is still kind of a big question mark out there. And then shaky punting, it wasn't that the average was bad. It's just that it seemed when Clemson needed it the most, the punter that they had, and Aiden Swanson, would shank it or just not go very far. This year, the improvements have kind of changed the narrative that we started assuming at the beginning of the season. There's not been any kickoff returns allowed so far in 2 games, and there's only been 1 punt return allowed. And, Jack Smith has been able to pin teams inside the 10. And, I just really feel like that Clemson as a whole on the offense or on the special team side has been doing the things they need to do to improve. And with Antonio Williams out, Bryant Wesco has stepped in and while he said it is kind of makes him a little nervous to do that role. He stepped in and he's shown that he's been confident and reliable as a punt returner. And you got to like what you see from Jack Smith. He's been very good at his directional punting, pinning opponents deep. He backed up LSU in the end zone. He handled very stressful situations very well so far. And Dabo admitted that he understood where the fans were coming from about being frustrated with the punter situation. But Jack Smith has done a really good job at kind of shutting us up, and we haven't had to worry about that. And maybe it's just that, we still worry about it, but we have so many other things to be concerned about, specifically with the offense and how lackluster they've been so far. The field goal protections have been better as well. Dabo changed coaching staff. They've put an emphasis with Matt Luke as well on blocking and trying to improve their attention to detail on the field goal protection, and changed some personnel out there. And it's improved how they've been able to protect the field goal kicker and holder, and then improve the technique overall, eliminated a lot of free rushes that we saw from 2024. So, so far, and I know it's still very early on, but the special teams unit has really not been a concern at all. So all of that preseason worry that we had and that I fueled the fire to, we can kind of temper those and walk them back a little bit. It's still very important, though, I think, to continue to stress excellence at special teams, because as these games get more difficult, hidden yardage, field position is going to be more and more valuable. As we get into the ACC slate, and then you get into the more difficult games of the season, we know that, especially as Clemson's offense starts struggling, when you look at a team like Georgia Tech that they're about to face, they're going to want to come out and dictate the clock and the time of possession and keep Clemson's offense off the field. And so if Clemson gets there, doesn't have many opportunities, and let's say they struggle again to start out strong, which is a high chance, then you're going to be relying on Jack Smith again to pin the offense, the opposing offense, deep, and not only, switch the field, but give the defense an advantage and make it much harder on that opposing offense to move the ball and ultimately, hopefully, get Cade Klubnik and Clemson's offense the ball again. If you gave me a crystal ball, my crystal ball is still swirling around the fact that I believe Georgia Tech is going to come out and play ground and pound with Haynes King and Jamal Haynes, and they are going to be the 1-2 punch, and they're going to do everything they can to go as slow as possible, to be methodical as possible, and very calculated with their runs. And they're going to try to do everything they can to break tackles and to cause penalties and, extend drives and ultimately keep control of the play clock. One thing that we know we can't count on with Clemson so far is that we can't count on them to have much in the way of time of possession. Clemson's been terrible with time of possession so far. If I'm Georgia Tech, I'm loving that, because I have exactly the offense I need, and at my home stadium, to dictate the game as far as the play clock. And if they have the ball for 35 minutes or around that time, I'm worried about Clemson being able to win this game. I really am. And it could lean back on Clemson's special teams getting points in field goals or getting better position from returns, or just simply pinning Georgia Tech deep. It's kind of crazy to think, though, that we're here in week 3, and I'm actually trying to pitch you on the idea that the special teams is as much of a weapon as the offense is. I'm shocked myself to just say it out loud, but I mean, that's where we're at. All right. So segment 3, for my everydayers out there that's still with me, segment 3, we're going to jump into Georgia Tech player previews. I gave you 3 players previously. It was both quarterbacks and the running back. We know what to expect from them. So if you go to the game or if you're watching it with friends, you already have 3 guys on your list of players to watch. I'm going to give you 3 more and some key reasons why they matter. And so, to help you be the most informed fan going into the game this Saturday. So we'll do that in segment 3 right here on Locked On Clemson. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. That's the best I've seen all season long, all year. And I love using FanDuel because it's super easy to use, and when you win, you get paid out almost instantly. It's quick, it's easy. The interface on my phone is just so intuitive and easy to use. And then those same game parlays, man, I've seen my friends send me messages, send me screenshots of these parlays they're doing. And I'm like, how did you even think of these combinations? But it makes the games that much more exciting. And you can put parlays together. You can put combinations and prop bets together and make something really big. And if you really trust what you're seeing, you can really bankroll it into some good winnings there. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. And this episode is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. And that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is here for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in minutes. You can see clear data visuals and get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I love it because of that. Not touching a spreadsheet. Now, I've had a spreadsheet for probably 10 years at this point until I got Monarch Money. No more manual spreadsheet entering. No more trying to figure out how to do the perfect formula and Googling things about how to put in certain things in different cells. Monarch makes all that stuff super easy. And then you can work with your spouse and see things in a graphical form that just makes it easier. You can have those easier conversations because you have data to back it up that's easy to read. So don't let this financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. All right, finally, we're going to wrap up the show with a quick Georgia Tech 3-player threat player preview. Everyone knows what we did before with the quarterbacks. You know, you've got Haynes King, and you got Aaron Philo. So you got a runner quarterback and you got a passer quarterback. And then you have Jamal Haynes, which is their bruiser, wide receiver converted to running back, 1,000-yard all-purpose guy from 2024. All those guys can light it up on the scoreboard and light it up in the stat sheet. I do believe King and Haynes are going to be after you this weekend, and so you're going to get a heavy dose of the run. But there are 3 other names that we probably want to take a look at and make sure that we are aware of as we get ready for the game this weekend. One, you may already be familiar with because this was a guy that Dabo Swinney actually went after and entertained or tried to entertain for the transfer portal. Offensive guard Keylan Rutledge. He's actually now an All-ACC level offensive lineman and a leader amongst the team on that side. Wouldn't it be amazing if he actually had gone and been a transfer portal player and gone to Clemson? I still think Clemson, looking back, probably kicking themselves for not getting an offensive lineman last transfer portal cycle. They obviously wanted one 2 cycles ago. And now Keylan Rutledge plays for Georgia Tech, and he is a big part of why this team is averaging over 550 yards per game. Rutledge is basically their anchor. He's going to be able to handle whatever Clemson's defensive line brings at him. He's probably going to match up with a Stephylan Green or a Peter Woods. And he is good enough to where maybe he doesn't always need those double teams. And that's one thing I wanted to mention about Clemson's defensive front. We're hearing a lot about Peter Woods demanding double teams. Well, the problem with my concern with that is if he's demanding double teams so much as we think he is, which I believe it's almost about 50% of the time he's getting double teamed, then that means that the other guys are in one-on-one situations and they need to step up and win and beat their guy in front of them. So Peter Woods, while he's violent, while he demands double teams, that's when you have to take advantage of those things and really exploit whenever you're not being double teamed. So where are the rest of the Clemson defensive linemen? I mentioned on a previous show, Clemson's defense, I felt like was still an elite defense. I got a couple of fans in there that pushed back on me and said, Morgan, we don't know if we really agree with that. Their bend don't break. Yeah. But they're still giving up some big chunk plays, and they're not really getting the pressure and getting into the backfield like we expected from this team that is a veteran team. And honestly, I can't blame you for having that thought process. Clemson's not getting in the backfield as much as I believe they should, or you believe they should, from what you're saying in the comments. So if this is the case that Peter Woods is warranting double teams, then where are the other guys? They need to step up. And I'm going to be curious to see this matchup because Keylan Rutledge is a guy that I think really Clemson should have gotten, maybe really needed and really wanted, and really need right now because the offensive line's struggling as much as they are. Clemson, to me, they've gotten some preseason All-ACC mentions. But right now out the gates, I don't think any of these guys on this offensive line are going to get any All-ACC awards at all. First team, second team, third team. But Keylan Rutledge is definitely going to be one of those guys that's going to be in the conversation for sure. So Georgia Tech is going to be running the ball a lot, and they're going to have their anchor in Keylan Rutledge on the line. So make sure you have him circled. Another guy that I have is Jordan Vandenberg, defensive tackle, another veteran leader there. He's got a ton of he had a good stat sheet last season, and he brings stability to the defensive front, and he has the ability to collapse a pocket. If Cade is still getting flustered in the pocket, it's probably going to be in large part because of the success that Jordan Vandenberg has against Clemson's offensive line. So I'll be looking for that matchup there as well. Another big-time name that I think is going to do good on Sundays when he moves up, but is also going to wreak havoc on Saturdays right now. And I could see both of those guys having a successful game this Saturday in Rutledge and Vandenberg. And then finally, I put down here Malik Rutherford. He's one of their explosive playmakers on the outside. He is a wide receiver that you cannot afford to lose track of. Clemson's secondary is going to have to stay honest with him, and they can't completely sell out on the run because of Rutherford getting open deep and being able to kind of sneak back there and make a big play. If Rutherford has a big game, it's because the running game's doing well and then the play action is doing well. I guarantee you, if Georgia Tech does a play action, maybe one of their first play actions is going to try to go to Rutherford. So make sure you look out for him and circle as well. Just to give you the numbers, if you're one of those guys, Malik Rutherford is number 8. Keylan Rutledge is number 77. And Jordan Vandenberg is number 99. So you'll be looking out for those guys. I think they have a potential to have a good game against Clemson and to cause some frustration for the Tigers this weekend. Big picture, though, Clemson's defense must be able to neutralize any push that Georgia Tech has and stop that run game. That's number one for me. And then finally, Clemson still just got to get out of whatever's causing them to tread water, they've got to snap out of that. So those are my two keys, offense and defensive wise, for Clemson going into Saturday. We'll continue this discussion here on Locked On Clemson all throughout the week. This is the Wednesday night show. You'll get a show on Thursday and Friday and I'll keep giving you more and more players to watch and more thoughts on Clemson as we get prepped for this Georgia Tech ACC matchup in Atlanta this weekend. I appreciate everyone being a part of the show. Thank you again so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen, and for my everydayers hanging out to the very end of the show. This is a big moment for Locked On college football fans. Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. By the way, when I say Locked On local experts, I mean myself, because this Thursday, tomorrow, I will be on the show. So check it out. A college football preview show only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Hey, that's it for this episode, Tiger fans. I'll see you tomorrow, and I'll see you at the top of the hill.